Good morning, Judge. My name is Vivek. I am the managing director here at DIMS. And today we have Judge Abbott. Welcome to the show, Judge. Uh,
Hi,
Thank you for being here. Introduce yourself to our audience, who you are, what you do.
my name's Chris Abbott. I'm a district court judge for the Montana First Judicial District Court, which is the court that kind of does so the main trial court in Montana, handles everything from criminal cases to guardianships to adoptions, the whole works.
What made you go into becoming a judge? Is this something you always imagined was the next step of sorts?
No, I have wanted to be a lawyer for a long time. That was something that was an ambition of mine going back to high school. I think as a lawyer, practicing lawyer, judges have a really unique position to have a lot of influence for good or for bad in the justice system, particularly in criminal cases. There's a lot of discretion given to judges around sentencing, who stays in jail, who gets out of jail, how quickly the cases move. There's a lot of decisions where there's a lot of play in the joints, and judges, along with prosecutors, are kind of the most influential players in that system. So it's a real opportunity. And of course, I came up in the criminal justice side of the law,
Hmm.
so it's a really good opportunity for to do a lot for the community. So that's what attracted me to it.
So let's say that you sentence someone to a length of time in prison. You can't go back and say, I thought about this and I kind of
No,
don't want to. Nope, that's not possible.
no. In fact, we're prohibited. Once we pronounce sentence, that's the sentence, unless there's an error, we miscalculated something, or there's a typo, or something like that. The recourse after that is to go to the Supreme Court and ask for an appeal.
Oof.
I can't change my mind after the fact.
Why do and take up another set of responsibility? Does it provide a sense of gratification that the other kinds of courts or programs don't do that for you?
There's a lot of things about treatment court where you're right. It's very different from traditional courts. It's a lot less formal. It's not an adversarial process for the most part, in that we try to make decisions by consensus. We're all working for the same goal. We do have cases where you have hearings with witnesses and opposing sides, but those are relatively uncommon. And what's gratifying about it is you get to see what people can achieve. So the thing that I enjoy about it is you can take someone who, we have people who come in who are notorious in the criminal justice system for years or decades. Their name has appeared on many filings. Everyone knows who they are. They're known as menaces to the local community, but they come into treatment. We've had several of
Right.
those come into treatment court, and they come out and they are fantastic human beings who do. They have families, they have good jobs, they're inspirations to the other people in their program. They're giving back. They get their lives straightened out. We've had several people where they haven't had a license since they were 18. They've gotten
Hmm.
their driver's license back. They've paid off all their court fines, and they've never been in a situation where they've been free of court involvement, and they've walked out of our court free of that and unrecognizable from what I think everyone assumed they were prior to them coming in. And so I think that's really gratifying. You really get to see what humans are capable of achieving. And once you start removing some of those barriers, just how great a lot of these people are if they just get the chance that they need.
Do you feel that as these participants come in your program, you sort of want to wring their neck and say, "Believe in this, you'll be fine. Just go through the process," and they just refuse. Like when we look at the data on our end, we so many, not just in necessarily your course specific, it's just nationwide data where most of the people who leave the treatment court program and don't make it through, 50% of them are leaving in phase one. They do you think it's just they don't want to be there, they don't understand it, or something else going on?
It's a combination of things. I think I will say there's a lot of research that bears this out. Is that for substance abuse is a very intractable problem, and there's a high failure rate in all modes of treatment. And a lot of times, I think I've heard this phrase, and I think it's backed up by some evidence that you have to go through treatment, X number of times on the average person before it's successful and they achieve a sustained recovery. So it's important not to give up on people, but also so that also means sometimes people aren't ready. And we've had some recent terminations in our court where that's exactly what happened. Is they came in, we couldn't get them to stop using for more than a short period of
Hmm.
time. We put them through treatment, And then at some point they just stop showing up, and then it kind of forces our hand, and we have a warrant out for them. But and I, the answer to that is someone asks me, well, what went wrong? I'd say, oh, I just don't think they're ready yet. It's okay to come in and not be fully bought in. That's actually pretty normal. But there are certain people where they're just at a level where they're not in a place yet where they're going to be receptive, and we can't get them to that like minimum baseline stability to where we can really work with them.
What advice would you have for someone who is, first couple of months, first year into the program dealing with this process?
I think the managing the court, the things that are important to keep in mind is one, it's very different from regular court. And if you kind of come in with the adversarial or a punishment mindset, it's going to be very difficult. I think courts that aren't successful are ones that are very heavy on using jail time and punitive measures and do this because I'm the judge and I say so. And there's some people where that's effective with, but I'd say most of the folks, they've been through that. They've experienced that. It hasn't worked. There's no reason to think it'll work now. So a lot of that is a mindset and a buy-in.
Hmm.
The other thing is, I think, this is one of those things where years ago I was at this training. I'll just try to tell a quick story to illustrate the point.
Sure.
I was at training as a public defender, and they were teaching a method of jury selection. And they were like, you should just follow this method. If you ask these questions in this way, you'll get like pretty good information. And every time someone came up to practice, no one really liked the fact they were just kind of doing the formula. So they would try to put their own spin on it, and they'd fall flat in their face. And the people who followed the technique did well. And so I think we always want to put our own stamp on things. And to some extent, that's fine. But there is a whole body of best practices and research and techniques that other people have spent a lot of time through trial and error and research have kind of come up with. And I think it's good to accept that. And even when it feels counterintuitive, recognize that they're best practices for a reason. And so I think trying to surrender your own ego a little bit in the I know best and accept that is really helpful.
Did it take time for you from when you started doing this? When I say this, I mean when you started being a judge for the treatment court to the point where it clicked, and did you have to try to be like, tell yourself, don't be punitive about this, this is not regular court? Or was it an easy transition, like you went through to the conferences, you read what you read and heard what you heard, and then you were like, okay, I can implement this?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I still feel like anything's completely clicked. I'm always trying to do better and always trying to learn, and it's often a struggle. And so, I mean, I wouldn't say it's been an easy transition from the beginning to now. Is that I'm still trying to find my way in certain things. I think one of the things that actually is a real challenge from the judge perspective at treatment courts is, I was just saying this to someone yesterday, it's the kind of like, it's a little bit like a kindergarten in the sense of if you give Johnny a cookie, you better be prepared to have one for everyone. And so participants will tug on your heartstrings and give you like very compelling sounding things for why you should make an exception for them. And sometimes that's appropriate, and you need to be flexible, and you need to give them the benefit of the doubt sometimes. But you also have to be mindful that you've got a room full of people watching that. And if we let someone slide on this thing, then sure enough, the next day I've got three more people that want the same thing.
What is your thought on other judges doing the same thing? Why do you, I don't want to use the word allow and be authoritarian about this, but like, why do you encourage, or why does your program encourage such activities? And what are the benefits that, from a judge's point of view, you might have seen for this?
These types of programs, one, they show a really good way that you can live a good life and a fun life,
Hmm.
and a sober life. That you don't need drugs, alcohol, substances to enjoy life and have meaningful activities and connections. It also is, I think, a really good way of giving them dignity and empowerment. I think all those rewards is oftentimes counteracting this lifelong negative reinforcement with
Hmm.
positive reinforcement. If you do well in this program, good things are going to happen to you,
Right.
and we're going to be there to make sure that happens. So that's why it's so important to focus on the positive. And quite honestly, a lot of these folks, like I said, they've been through a system where people use punishment and do this or do that or else, and it hasn't done anything for them. And so we're trying to do something a little different, see if we can reach them, kind of on the other side of that coin.
That brings me back, one of the participants told me that, hey, we had to float the river, and I've never floated the river sober. The idea of doing things sober is a little bit of an alien concept for people. who are in treatment court, isn't it? Like I didn't realize that is a problem. Realizing that you can do things sober and still enjoy it.
Yeah, we had someone. I will say the flow, and we don't require people because they're
Right, of
small
course.
small risk, but there is some risk with the activity. So it's one of
Right.
those things where it's available, people want to do it, but they don't have to. But legal disclaimer aside, we had someone a couple years ago who graduated who told us about how he went fishing for the first time, and he's like, "My whole life I've gone fishing. I bring a six pack with me, and I sit there and drink it while I fish every single time." He's like, and this time he didn't, and he realized that he could enjoy fishing and enjoy all the same things he used to do, but remove that alcohol link to it. And so, yeah, I think it's really valuable that they learn about, hey, we can go to this, we can go to a social event and not drink. We can go do this activity, and the alcohol isn't necessary to make it enjoyable.
Why is it important for a judge specifically to see the participants as humans and not someone, oh, he's in this court, he's committed a crime, and now I need to pass a judgment on them?
I think that's actually it's very important. I think that's actually the wonderful thing about treatment courts is they force us to do that. There's just no way you can see someone every week or every other week, have to talk to them and engage a dialogue for at least a 3 minute dialogue with them, about what's going on in their life and not come to see them as a person. And it's very easy in a regular criminal setting to not see that because you're going to see police reports about what they did or are accused of doing, what the victim says they did, what their criminal history is, and so we don't we don't actually talk about their crimes at all. Really, it's rare. In DUIs, we do a little bit of that on our DUI track, but for the drug track, I mean, we're not spending time dwelling on what they've done in the past. This is all about the future and going forward and how they're going to improve their lives. And so, I think it's extremely important. It's also one of the things about treatment court that's really great is that it forces us to see them that way.
Thank you so much, Judge, for talking to us. I hope that when this goes out, other judges will listen to it and learn from your experience and continue the path forward. I also thank you for spending all this time working in treatment courts. I think more folks like you are needed. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun.
Absolutely.